The fight between Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni keeps getting intense as they head to trial soon. But amidst all of the chaos, there have been silly moments that are just too funny and ridiculous to pass over, and these 9 moments we've compiled will leave you cracking a rib or more. Many speculations, facts, and theories have been passed regarding the things that went on between Blake and Justin on the set of It Ends With Us, and you are now about to see one of the most ridiculous ones. I was a huge Britney Spears fan in high school. Who, what adolescent boy was I? And you can already guess whose dress Blake Lively wore to the premiere. Blake wore Britney Spears' dress, which the singer had worn in 2002, and in the special thanks at the film's end credit, Blake appreciated Britney. Interestingly, it's hilarious how Blake decided to wear a dress belonging to someone Justin was a huge fan of in high school. When Britney wore the dress in 2002, Justin Baldoni was 18, which means he was precisely around the age where he was a big fan of Britney. And for Blake to have carefully chosen that dress for the premiere speaks volumes because it keeps proving right the theories about Blake being in love with Justin. Many thoughts usually go into celebrities' outfits, especially for special occasions like the premiere. So Blake knew what she was doing, or it was just a crazy coincidence. It's also wild that Blake insisted on Justin not seeing her at the premiere, which forced him into a basement, and it could be a strategy to make Justin see pictures of her wearing Britney's dress in the media as a reminder of how Justin used to see Britney in the news while growing up. During this feud, Blake's ridiculous and cringy interviews have been uncovered, but you won't believe how silly it is for Blake to have continued to expose herself and her intentions even before she landed the role in It Ends With Us. Sometimes I would have people who really resented that because they were like, "We just hired you to be an actor." Yet when I went in the meetings, I would just seem like I'm just there to be the actor and ready to get the gig. I wouldn't reveal that I actually need to have authorship in order to feel fulfilled. It's super amusing how Blake has said many implicating things in interviews that are now being used against her. Admitting that she pretends to be an actress to hide her real motive, where she will eventually take creative control to feel fulfilled, is next-level comedic. She opened and closed the case by handing over to Justin one of the most vital pieces of evidence to win the trial. But then it continued with Blake revealing she becomes a difficult person to get what she wants, which is exactly why she gave Justin a tough time. There are moments it's just as important to say, "Okay, I believe in this, and that's why I'm standing up for it, and that's why I'm not being difficult." And then there are other moments to go like, "Am I the a-hole in the room? Like, what is happening here?" Blake, realizing she's often the a-hole in the room, is quite laughable because Justin's receipts are little compared to the ones Blake has planted in public without ever having to try too hard. I think it's about being upfront about, like, knowing what you actually need versus just, like, trying to get the job and then, once you're in it, sort of revealing the scope of your sort of needs to be, fulfilled. If Justin had only done background research on Blake to dig out these interviews, the story would probably not have ended in court. Everyone is aware by now that Ryan Reynolds tried to be funny by portraying Justin Baldoni as Nice Pool in the film Deadpool. But the most hilarious things are the Easter eggs Ryan and Blake planted in Deadpool that they thought would make them seem like geniuses once people begin to dig them out. One of the ridiculous things Ryan and Blake did with the Nice Pool character was to get him executed in front of a flower shop. It's wild because the flower shop is a big part of It Ends With Us, where they continuously terrorized Justin. Surprisingly, they didn't stop at harassing him on set because they thought they were so funny that they made Lady Pool, whom Blake voiced, bring down Justin in front of the flower shop. However, it gets even more ridiculous when you discover that the flower shop is called Little Sage. It was also alleged that Blake accused Justin of saging on set, which is usually used to cleanse out negative energy. So, naming the flower shop Little Sage is an inside joke that Blake and Ryan thought would be interesting. But it's hilarious how they ended up becoming the joke after people saw what they did to be distasteful. Funnily enough, they went even harder to connect the dots by sprinkling some Easter eggs at the end credit of It Ends With Us. At the film's end, Blake gives a special thanks to Gordon Reynolds. In the end credit for Deadpool, Gordon Reynolds is credited as Nicepool. Since Gordon Reynolds has no part in It Ends With Us, it's surprising Blake thought it would be amusing to thank him, especially in Justin Baldoni's movie. And it's so silly because their attempt at making a witty joke turned out flat. And while commenting on Nicepool, it's shocking how much hate Ryan has for the character. I hate Nicepool worse than Deadpool does. Interestingly, Ryan didn't copy Justin's hairstyle alone. He also copied his nose for Nicepool using prosthetics, which is another reason Blake mocked Justin's nose by telling him to opt for plastic surgery. The first worrisome sign people saw regarding It Ends With Us was Blake Lively's ridiculous costumes. When the pictures of her outfits leaked while they were still filming, people laughed because the costumes do not describe Lily Bloom as they are very hideous. It got crazier when we learned Blake had chosen her outfit by herself, which is surprising judging by how she has been praised for her Met Gala looks over the years. However, it must have been devastating and painfully funny when Blake refused to work with the costume designer, disregarding all the outfits they've already spent money and time to select just for her to choose clothes from her wardrobe, Ryan Reynolds, and Bella Hadid's closets. And the most shocking thing is that Blake blew $430,000 of the budget for her character's wardrobe alone, which is ridiculous because the outfits are ugly. However, they cost a lot because Blake picked out expensive designer outfits for her character, starting with this Valentino tote she carried throughout the film. Her boots in this shot are from Chloe, and Lily, who owns a flower shop, wouldn't have most of her outfits as designers. But that wasn't enough because Blake also wore the crystal mesh Saint Laurent boots, a luxury that's too much for Lily, whose first love was a homeless boy. Blake showed off Lily as materialistic, which is ridiculous, as she also rocked these Christian Louboutin heels in the film. And all her focus in the leaked tape recorded on set was getting the viewers to see her expensive heels. Even her shirts in the movie were expensive as she wore an Isabel Marant as a florist who had just opened her own business. The disconnect between Blake Lively and Lily Bloom when it came to the wardrobe is outrageous and doesn't reflect the character, and that's to show you Blake took the whole thing as a joke. Because it's ridiculous that a hired actress wouldn't read the novel the film is based on, but will also go ahead to curate and assemble every aspect of the character they never got to know. From how Lily's character is written, she would be the type to shop for thrifted and vintage designer pieces rather than the costly and updated items Blake wore in the movie. Another funny thing about the It Ends With Us drama you may have missed is that there is so much in common between Justin Baldoni and Penn Badgley, Blake's ex, before she met Ryan Reynolds. And the reason why the speculation that Blake gravitated towards Justin because he's her type is because of the damning similarities between both men, which cannot be mistaken, and the most laughable one will surprise you. Putting some of their pictures side by side is just too identical, and shows that Blake allegedly has a type, making the accusation that she fell in love on set even more real. However, the most dreadful twist is that Justin's 2 a.m. voicemail message to Blake sounds precisely like Joe Goldberg, a character that Penn portrays in You. Interestingly, Blake might never be able to escape from these allegations that she was romantically drawn to Justin because even her text to him ridiculously spelled it out. While texting about one of the scenes in the movie, Blake deflected it to a personal angle in a cringy text that says, "If you knew me, in person, longer, you'd have a sense of how flirty and yummy the ball-busting would play. It's my love language, spicy and playfully bold, never with teeth, and him serving it back to her is just as important. This was such a creepy message, and Blake added that she could act these things out for Justin the next week, which is hilarious, seeing how the text is written. Telling Justin he would understand if he knew her longer in person, and describing that as her love language to saying, "never with teeth," is deeply outrageous and concerning. But what makes this more ridiculous is Justin's reply to the text, where he deflected from the weird text he just got from Blake to talk about his kids as a reminder to Blake that he's a family man. Funnily enough, that wouldn't be the first time Blake would send Justin a cringy text as she did in another instance, where she sent a paragraph to equate herself with Khaleesi from Game of Thrones. It was a hilarious moment when Justin leaked the text, and we saw how Blake didn't stop at calling herself Khaleesi, but named Ryan Reynolds and Taylor Swift as her dragons. It's so amusing because Blake only craves the power Khaleesi had in the show with the help of her dragons in conquering thrones, but doesn't realize how it ended for Khaleesi, which isn't surprising since she's the same person who couldn't read the It Ends With Us novel and had to Google Lily's hair color. But what's more silly about this is that Blake didn't see Game of Thrones to the end, but was happy enough to make the comparison because an interviewer planted it in her head. I can totally picture Blake in the Game of Thrones world, right? Can't you? As a dragon? Yeah. Maybe. Like you kind of have Mother of Dragon hair going in a good way. It's so wild that Blake was more than pleased with this narrative, believed it, named her dragons, and even used them to threaten Justin Baldoni. Despite many of the cast members leaning towards Blake Lively and going on a press tour with her, some of their interview moments have been ridiculous with the facial expressions of the cast whenever Blake was talking around them. In the movie, she's not doing me. She's bringing herself to the role as a young Lily. And I think that there's a key difference in that because I think if she would have come in and tried to do me, it would have been like a Saturday Night Live situation. Isabella was asked a question, but Blake started answering, and it was apparent the young cast was exhausted, which is even more funny because Blake was too self-obsessed to notice the body language of her co-cast. Earlier, we discussed how people started digging out old interviews of Blake in which she had made some very negative impressions, especially on interviewers. However, when Blake isn't congratulating a not-pregnant host for their bump, she is getting them drunk even though she doesn't drink. Magnus: yes? When I saw you earlier, you said, "Oh, let me get a shot." And I thought you meant of alcohol, but you meant a photograph. So guess what? Time to put up. And what are we drinking? Aviation American Gin, who's owned by a very, very sexy man who also happens to be my husband. Coming to an interview to advertise her husband's martini without the interviewer's notice isn't the only ridiculous thing about this Blake interview that resurfaced amid the controversy as she insisted he drank even though it was too early to drink. We're starting early. Yeah, we are starting early. What better time to start? Cheers. Cheers. How does the taste test happen? It was good. Oh, your voice went higher an octave. Come on, just shoot it. When the uncomfortable interviewer revealed he heard she doesn't drink, Blake went on another storytelling which the interviewer didn't find amusing. I hear you don't drink, right? I don't drink, no. This is coffee. But it's in a martini glass. Isn't that classy? I don't even like coffee, but I drink it because I love the way they crush the beans and they talk about it, and the story of the origin of them and, the milk and the foaming and all that. The press tour meant to promote a simple favor turned into exactly how Blake wanted it to be, and it's now one of the interviews that have continued to expose who Blake is. And it gets even worse because when Blake isn't getting exposed by people digging up her unpleasantness, she's doing it herself by admitting to things she has been accused of. What really happened is we were like, we're going to show the movie, and the studio was like, no, you're going to show 20 minutes. So we're like, no, we're going to show the movie. They're like, it's not done. And I was like, they don't fucking care. This statement sounded so funny to the audience at the time. Not knowing, Blake booted out Justin as the director and disregarded Sony's directives. It's also hilarious that she outdid herself again without a care. And the ridiculousness is in how Blake never knew all these bold, arrogant statements would be coming back to affect her. But yeah, there were other people too that I had to call and beg, and people that said no. I don't know what that means. So if somebody is a dictionary, I would love to find the definition of that. It's so confusing to me. It was daring to have hijacked a whole movie from the director and come out physically to say all these things, making it crazy that someone could be so tone-deaf. It was surprising when people initially saw Ryan Reynolds promoting It Ends With Us with his friend Hugh Jackman and even his mother, while leaving out Justin Baldoni. Although the promotion started well with Ryan asking Brandon about his relationship with his wife on set, the script soon degenerated to them talking about meth and how Ryan Reynolds tried coping with his father's loss. Do you know that Ryan lost his father in 2015? I'm sorry. Living with Ryan must have been incredibly hard for him. Bro. This line and many others spoken in that promo has no correlation with It Ends With Us or Deadpool, which is beyond